Alright, so embarrassing moment for me. I got about 5 minutes into shooting this video before I realized my microphone was nowhere near me. I was just talking into the camera. So anyway, the first thing I should mention is I was absolutely speed reading Baki this year. I got all the way through the first series, Grappler Baki. Towards the end, I was sometimes reading like 4 or 5 volumes in a day. It was great. The basic rundown, if you haven't heard me talk about it in a past video, is Baki is a martial arts manga, and it's kind of like if you took all the supernatural elements out of JoJo and replaced it with martial arts bro science. That's my favorite elevator pitch of the series. The last time I talked about Baki, I was sad that I spent such a short time talking about it because I wanted to show more images in the background of the ridiculous things that happen in this manga. So I'll just name some of those things and also show you unrelated images from the manga of even more ridiculous scenes. There's a point where Baki goes into the mountains to train, and he ends up encountering this Sasquatch-like mountain ape, and it turns out he and his family have this vendetta, and like Baki's father Yujiro also fought the mountain apes, and now Baki is back to also fight the mountain apes. And they come out of it with a newfound respect for each other. There's another point where Baki's father, Yujiro, is about to get into a fight, and coincidentally, an earthquake starts to happen. So Yujiro punches the ground, and the earthquake stops. Just like that. I really love when Baki has fighting tournament arcs. I'm usually not that into those in like most anime and manga, weirdly. But with Baki, I cannot wait to just like place my bets on who I think is gonna win, and I know that no matter what happens, every fight is gonna be absolutely over the top. I also love when the artist decides to insert some real-world celebrities into the manga with slightly changed names, like Iron Michael. He's in this underground fighting tournament. You know, Iron Michael, the heavyweight champion of the world in boxing. Why are you not reading Baki yet? Okay, now I don't know if I have talked about this one in the past, but I decided to go back and finish reading I Am a Hero. Yeah, like I said, I don't think I have talked about this one before, but I started reading it years ago, and I've never gotten around to finishing it because this is one of those series where the physical volumes are constantly out of print. Sometimes they get reprinted occasionally, and I order them back into the manga cafe, and they sell, and then I can't read them again. So I finally broke down and just read the whole rest of the series digitally, just because I wanted to have it finished. I didn't want to have so many ongoing series. I wanted to kind of wrap up some of my ongoing manga that are actually completed, if that makes sense. Anyway, I was reluctant to read this one for a long time because based on the covers it just kind of looked like generic, like, zombie apocalypse fantasy movie where it's like, oh, the main character is the only guy with a gun, and so everybody looks up to him, and he gets to be really cool, and like everybody in the zombie apocalypse depends on him when he was just a loser nerd before. Also, it's a good excuse for him to shoot all the people he hated. That's what it looked like. But as it turns out, the series is a lot smarter than that. I think it's very aware of that kind of like zombie apocalypse fantasy idea that some people inexplicably have. It does start out that the main character is kind of a loser, and he is the only person around who has a gun, but it's like, it's hard to explain. It's like he is somebody who, at the beginning of the story, does not fit in with society, and so when society breaks down around him, he still doesn't fit in. It's kind of like society starts to lose all meaning from the perspective of a guy who did not have any meaning in society in the first place. This is a kind of a tangent where I have something stupid to brag about, but I once tried to pitch this series to somebody in the manga cafe, and I used a summary very similar to what I just said, and like a nearby customer overheard and was like, "That's like the best description I've ever heard of a manga. That sounds really good." And I was like, "Yep, I'm pretty good at recommending manga to people. That's just kind of who I am." Anyway, this was a pretty long series. It has like 200 or 300 chapters, I think. So there is a lot to talk about in it, but I don't want to like do a whole deep dive into it here. I gotta say, I don't think the ending was the best. It was kind of setting up this plot where, like, the zombies are appearing to have, like, a shared consciousness, and, like, they're all working toward a particular goal, and there's this big climactic scene near the end, but then, like, it kind of doesn't amount to much in the end. I'm kind of wondering if this might have been a case where maybe the artist was just tired of making the manga at that point. Also, I have a suspicion that he might have been inserting some of his friends into the story. Like, I know this artist is reported to be friends with Inio Asano, who made Goodnight Punpun, and DDDD. And there is a character near the end of I Am a Hero who looks suspiciously like him, and, like, has his same fashion sense. So I kind of wonder if some of the characters, at least toward the end, might have been fellow manga artists that he inserted into the story. Because I know that near the end of DDDD, Kengo Hanazawa gets mentioned by name. He's, like, actually in that story. So I kind of think they might have put each other in each other's manga, which is just kind of a fun little Easter egg, if true. Alright, another one that I decided to finally go back and finish after starting it years ago was Himizu. And this was, like, kind of another manga about people who don't really fit into society. It's, like I said, this is the kind of manga that I feel like I really need to read once in a while. One that is not about, like, a high school protagonist. It's not, you know, about a good boy doing his best. It's about, like, the people who are not successes, and the people that society kind of casts aside and forgets about. It was a pretty short series. I think probably the snappiest way I could describe it is it largely feels like manga Catcher in the Rye, where it's like it follows a main character who is just really dissatisfied with society, feels like he doesn't fit in anywhere, and is generally just kind of disgusted with most people. Anyway, it was only about 4 volumes long. It was back in August that I read it, and I don't have a whole lot more to say about it beyond that, but I do want to read more work by this artist. I have seen a book of his in the manga cafe. It's called, like, Siguatera, something like that. And I might give that a try sometime after I finish some more of my ongoing reads. Next, I finished Until I Love Myself. I read the second volume of that, which turned out to be the final volume. Might have kind of a weird take on this one, but I feel a bit like the artist kind of self-sabotaged their own story in the second volume, and it's going to be hard to explain. So the manga as a whole is largely about, like, finding one's gender identity and going through, like, harassment and abuse when that turns out to be something non-traditional. And I think I talked about this last time, how I really love to read how somebody experienced an event through their specific perspective, and it was this, like, tremendous, horribly traumatic event, when for others it seemed like something totally innocuous. I really like getting to see those different perspectives and kind of, like, have things like that explained. Things kind of took a turn in the second book, because there's a lot about the artist kind of, like, going around to their friends who also have stories about being abused, and just kind of being like, hey, I think our stories need to be told, and it's important for the world to know about this. And, like, one or two of their friends were just kind of like, I don't really think it was a big deal what happened to me. You know, like, inexplicably they were like, I don't really think my abuse, as you call it, was, you know, something so horrific. And so then the artist kind of goes into this, like, introspection of, like, am I making a bigger deal out of other people's problems than they want me to make, you know? Like, is it wrong of me to go to other people and insist to them, like, hey, you were abused and you need to, like, tell the world about it, when they don't even feel like they went through the most horrible abuse? So I don't know. Personally, I guess I just kind of liked the story more when it was, like, a personal account of self-discovery and also personal experiences with abuse, because when it reached the point in the second book of being about, I need to tell everybody's abuse stories and take on this responsibility on everybody else's behalf, it kind of, I don't know, this might be a strong term, but it kind of soured it for me when it was like, when you got that perspective of other people saying, you know, I don't really think this is a big deal or needs to be shared. So, yeah, I came out of that one with kind of mixed feelings. I was totally on board with it in the first volume, and then I feel like it kind of, I don't know, maybe lost perspective a little with that second book. I would still highly recommend other people read it, though, just because I think it bears a lot of valuable discussion for the world in general. Thanks again for watching another installment, everyone, and a special thanks to all of the Manga Cafe's financial supporters listed here. I don't have a whole lot to add for this ending, so I think this time I will just recommend that you join my Discord, which should be in the pinned comment down below. We're not a very big community, but everybody's really nice, and you're welcome to chat more about other great manga and anime. Now I'll turn it over to Charlie so he can tell you about some manga he finished last year.